David, several years ago, there is a landmark film uh, directed by one Richard Donner that its legacy lives on. But we're not here to talk about Superman 1978. We're here to talk about Lethal Weapon 1987. See what we're doing there? Um, we're Warner Brothers came out with a 4K release of this kind of landmark action film recently, and on this disc is a theatrical cut and a director's cut. Now, I had never seen the director's cut before, so we decided to tackle this conversation a little differently. I watched the director's cut, and you watched the theatrical.
That's
You
right.
have not seen the director's cut, so a lot of there's going to be some new information for you, and new information possibly for the audience if you haven't seen what the director's cut was. Now, from what I understand, that term is a bit of a misnomer here because I don't believe Donner was at all involved in putting this together. It was essentially just Warner Brothers incorporating a bunch of deleted scenes back into the fabric of the film and blowing up the narrative by about 7.5 minutes roughly, which was definitely a choice. I had not watched this movie in possibly from start to finish about 30 years. So I remembered bits of it. I think I remember parts of Lethal Weapon 2 more than I remember the original, especially the
Mhm.
famous diplomatic
Yeah, yeah,
immunity.
yeah.
um, and I confess, I have never seen Lethal Weapon 3 or 4. So, yeah.
You're not
Uh,
missing out on much. Lethal Weapon 3 is really only, it's got some good chemistry with Rene Russo and Mel Gibson, but other than that, it's got a weak antagonist. And it's my problem with these movies is maybe it's for me, maybe it's the inclusion of Joe Pesci in this franchise because a little bit of Leo Getz goes a wrong way or a long way, maybe both. Uh, because what's so great about this movie is the first one is that yes, there's some comedy, but at the heart of it is some serious things going on, and I think it gets more intense with Lethal Weapon 2 with a sprinkle of comedy thanks to Pesci, but in 3 goes too nuts and it becomes too funny. Yeah.
and by 4, which again I've never seen, but just the impression I got watching the trailers, it all just looked very, I mean, the movie hadn't come out yet, but my recollection of it is it was very Ocean's 12. Like this
Well, it's
point,
crowded.
everybody's big movie stars. It looks very slick and polished, and everyone's kind of too beautiful. Whereas the like this original film that we're about to discuss, I promise, is very. I mean, it's a big Hollywood production, but it still has that mid to late 80s grit to it.
For
It's
sure.
it's a sleazy kind of, not sleazy, but it's a dark, dirty movie.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's Shane Black through and through, screenwriter of this movie. Um, and he would go on to do Last Boy Scout and a bunch of other movies, of course. Direct some as well, like The Nice Guys and Iron Man 3. Um, yeah. So, um, when did you first see Lethal Weapon?
Probably when it first hit video, I imagine, or
Okay.
cable, probably like 88, I imagine, because things took a while to hit once they left the theater, unlike today where it's you can watch it within 2 weeks.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I was in high school. I think I was probably let's see. It came out March. Okay, so it was freshman year for me. March '87, and man, we just watched it all the time, and especially once it went to VHS, we were renting it all the time, and it was just one of those. We're getting a bunch of guys together, some girls too, because Mel Gibson.
Oh yeah.
One of my girlfriends, friend who is a girl, not a girlfriend, but I remember, hanging out in her bedroom, and she had this big, huge Lethal Weapon poster. I'm like right above her bed, and I'm like, okay, she's cool. It was one of those back in the day, like the Mod Pod video stores would, be tossing out or discounting the posters, and so now available on video cassette. Um, So I mean, it was a huge deal because kind of like the lackluster special features on this 4K mentions that there were buddy cop movies before this, but there weren't as many like reluctant partner movies before this. Um, and so it was a combination of both of that, buddy cop, kind of revitalizing a buddy cop movie, and also including the reluctant partner. And I think, this movie succeeds because of the Shane Black script, but also kudos to the casting director for actually, Murtaugh was not written as a black man, and so it was very interesting to what's her name? I think her name is Marion. Marion Doherty, who was a kind of like a renowned casting director. She's like, Mel Gibson, and you guys know Danny Glover? They're like, yeah, because he had just played Mister in Color Purple.
And before that, he was the heavy in Witness. So this
That's
is
right.
he had this like, and those were both, I think, 85. So this would have been casting for Lethal Weapon. He would have
Right.
been hot off those two movies. Yeah, that makes sense.
And both of them really liked the script, and especially Glover, who at the time was working on a play in Chicago. He read the script and he's like, wow, this is something very different from, what I'm mainly known for right now is, as far as movies, Color Purple. So, and he also liked the idea of playing kind of like this, family man who's pushing 50, even though at the time he was like 38. So they had to touch up his hair with, gray and stuff. But they have an uncanny chemistry, really. It's kind of great because the comedy comes organically and naturally just because, Murtaugh, who is, wanting to, get close to retirement, it's the classic, we're partnering you up with somebody. Here's your new partner. And of course, there's that great scene where he meets his new partner, Martin Riggs, who shows up in the police precinct, with a gun, and Danny Glover runs after him, and Mel takes him down, and then he says his first of many times he utters the classic line, "I'm getting too old for this shit." Just I think the organic comedy kind of comes from how Glover's Murtaugh is, processing all of this, like how Riggs is thrust upon him, and how Riggs is, tortured, internally tortured and suicidal, all that kind of thing. He's got a reputation.
Well, it's funny because it's not funny. I think people remember the first, at least I did, remember the first Lethal Weapon as being very much an action comedy, and it's there's some goofiness to it, but Martin Riggs, a lot of his comedy comes from the fact that it's kind of like that Dabney Coleman movie Short Time, which would come out 3 years later, where he's a cop who thinks that he's going to die, so he decides to become a super cop and just like try and get himself killed in the line of duty so his family can get the money.
Hilarious.
Right? But this is like a non-funny version of that. Martin Riggs does not want to live because his wife died, somewhat recently, and he just can't quite he's very good at busting bad guys. He's an ace shot, he was in a special unit in Vietnam, which I'm thinking, was he like 19 years old when he was, assassinating people from 1,000 yards away? Possibly.
Probably.
But it's, he's a big fan of the Three Stooges and, Warner Brothers cartoons and these kinds of things. And he kind of includes that zaniness in a lot of his antics and his interactions with the villains of the piece. But it really is kind of sad and scary, when he's putting the gun in his mouth and just really wanting to die but not being able to do it, and trying to find any reason to hang on. And when he meets the Murtaugh family, it is kind of touching. I mean, there's some comedy of like the elder teenage daughter has a crush on him, and he's kind of like, well, I don't know, how old is she, kind of a thing. But it's not as zany as I imagine those later two sequels were.
Yeah.
This movie is not necessarily about something, big picture, but it's definitely giving us more than just kind of action schlock. 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte came out, I think, 5 years before this. Was it 82 or 84?
82, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't remember much of that movie at all, but wasn't that more of a buddy cop comedy with action in it, or was it more in line with this?
Well, it's more cop and ex-con. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Eddie
Okay.
Murphy, Nolte pulled Eddie Murphy out of jail to help him out with a case.
Okay. Yeah, I think I watched that once when I was like 8 years old. My parents showed me a lot of things they shouldn't have.
I hear you.
I think I get that kind of storyline mixed up with Beverly Hills Cop, the Eddie Murphy movie, which also came out in 87. The same.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to get to, and don't let me forget this, but at the end of the show, I want to talk about why Lethal Weapon is the apex of the 1987 action movie, because it's a real 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon situation going on here. But you look at this kind of dynamic, and you look like the white cop, black cop, or black ex-con in that case. They don't really play up those racial dynamics too much in Lethal Weapon, which is kind of cool. It just is presented as this is who these folks are. And I feel like today there would be a lot more made about that. But in 1987, you're also looking at, we're going to talk about two controversial figures here, Mel Gibson and then also Bill Cosby, because this is like right in the sweet spot of the Cosby Show, which presented, a black centric sitcom about an upper middle class successful family where race was a factor only in that this is the people that we were being presented. And they weren't, janitors or, whatever was going on like the Jeffersons. Or maybe I'm thinking of Good Times. The big difference between 70s and 80s, like
George
black
Jefferson
sitcoms.
ran a dry cleaners, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a little bit before my time, or like before I was sentient. So yeah, I don't remember. But anyway, I did enjoy the lack of kind of racial politics in this movie, except for there's sort of this unspoken thing with Gary Busey and his Mr. Joshua, very much like the slick back, like blonde hair. I expected him to have like a German accent and have been some kind of an escaped clone from Argentina, if you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's funny because Gary Busey, he really went after this role because his career was kind of in a slump, and he had like recently gotten back into shape and lost like 60 pounds. He would later put on probably that much for Point Break, but yeah, I mean, and so he's like, I'm going to go for it because I really want to work with, Joel Silver and Richard Donner and Mel and Danny. And yeah, I mean, it was good casting. I mean, he was creepy, and yeah, it was, I mean, yeah, it was like, obviously we know more about Gary Busey now and his kind of crazy antics and stuff, but in that role, I mean, he was pretty intense. That whole scene where they're in that club and he's like, Mr. Joshua, give me your hand, and his boss is like holding a lighter up to it and like burning his hand. It's like, all right, yeah, go wrap that up.
And you know what? I don't know if they were using gel or something like that, because it didn't look like, to me, I was looking at the framing of it, and it didn't look like one of those things where you have Gary Busey in the background, like a fake hand in the extreme foreground with the lighter. It looked like he was setting his arm on fire. I'm like, well, it's Gary Busey. So
that kind of scene would probably be in Loaded Weapon, not Lethal Weapon.
There's a connection between Loaded Weapon and Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but one of the deleted scenes that was reincorporated into the director's cut is at one point Martin Riggs goes out driving, and he sees a 16-year-old prostitute on the street, and he picks her up. And what he does, he invites her back to his trailer, his RV,
Yeah.
to watch the Three Stooges. And that's all he wants to do. He just wants some company. And that actress is Renee Estevez, who's
Ah,
the sister of Emilio Estevez, who was the star of Loaded Weapon 1, the Lethal
that's
Weapon
hilarious.
parody. Yeah.
Wow, that's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, there's, I think, like, going back to casting. I mean, I think you have even some of the, like, supporting actors who play cops. It's fun to see them. I mean, they feel like you know, really worn in characters who are, fitting their role really well. I like what's the social worker there, and she gets more of a role in Lethal Weapon 2 and 3.
That was Mary Ellen Trainor, I think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah,
And that's the other
yes,
thing about like 80s movies. There are a lot of cop movies of various kinds, and they had really great character actors playing these cops. You think about the Terminator from 3 years earlier. We've got
yeah,
Lance Henriksen and Paul
yeah,
Winfield. Think
yeah.
about RoboCop and that colorful cast of folks. We need to bring that back. Bring back the the
I
character
know.
actor cops.
I don't know, man. Yeah. So I mean, I think, like, with this movie, I mean, we're starting out with Jingle Bell Rock, which solidifies, you know, basically it kind of introduces us to how prevalent Christmas is in Shane Black's screenplays. It's pretty much in every one of his screenplays. Um, and it, we have the character of Amanda Huntsacker, um, played by, hold on here, I forget.
Yeah, I didn't recognize the actress if she was in anything else, but
Yeah, I forget her name, but yeah. So she's there's this. We're wondering, like, what the connection is. Who is she? She takes a bunch of lines of coke and takes a jump off the balcony. Bam.
spectacular dive into a car, by the way.
Yes,
That was another thing the 80s loved to do, is throw people into cars and
in
watch the
slow
glass
mo.
blow out. Yes.
Yeah. And in Lethal Weapon 2, there's another scene jumping off a balcony where basically Murtaugh and Riggs take a suspect and jump with him over into a pool.
Which
Yeah,
they do in this movie too, except it's only Riggs, right? Or is that
right,
wasn't no, there was the pool scene and there was also the jumper that they
right.
jumped onto the inflatable thing. Speaking of jumping, I want to pull over for a second so I don't forget it. My main memory about the Lethal Weapon series is seeing the trailer, the teaser for Lethal Weapon 2 ad nauseum, like every time I went to the movies in like 1988, 89, until that movie came out. Do you remember that? It was the scene where Riggs was on the toilet and there's a
Yeah,
bomb
yeah,
underneath it. And it's like it's almost the entire scene. Like they're doing like modern marketing back in like
right.
1988. And Murtaugh's
Riggs,
on the toilet. Riggs comes in and he's sitting. The line is, "Guys like you don't die on toilets." And it's funny, but it's also kind of touching because he's sincere about it. And then the thing blows up. And I remember the trailer guy saying, "Lethal Weapon 2. This time they're not taking any crap."
wow, wow, so crazy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's crazy that, like, this movie got, like, it became a hit, but like most things in the 80s, like most movies in the 80s, um, became even more popular on on VHS and everything. But it's in one of the special features in the 4K. Shane Black is saying that it was rare. It's rare now, and it was rare at the time, that on the second weekend, the numbers went up instead of taking a dip. So it was, kind of word of mouth and everything, and that there was no internet, so people were, figuring it out and spreading the word. Yeah, so I mean, it's cool to see, like, that a movie like this, as popular as it is, it became such a thing because of the kind of the you know opposites attract kind of relationship that this movie has, that Glover and Gibson do so well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't put my mind into the 1987 R-rated action moviegoer because I was 10. So that wasn't my world. But it seems to me that the reason to go see this movie and then go see it again enough to make it a big hit and spread that word of mouth isn't because of the big action set pieces, not like today with Mission Impossible and those kinds
Right.
of things, but because of the dynamic between Glover and Gibson. I mean, there are some pretty outrageous things that happen, like with the jumper where Riggs goes up and handcuffs himself to a guy who's about to jump off a building, and he's like, "You're gonna take me with you. Come on, let's jump, let's go."
You want to go? Yeah.
And then they land, of course, safely. And the guy is like, "Get this maniac off of me. He's crazy."
Yeah. And then right immediately after is that great scene where Murtaugh pulls him into this, like, abandoned store or whatever. And he's like, all right, what's going on? He's just like, what are you really this crazy? And what I love is after a while, the more they hang out, the more both of them kind of get to know each other. And it takes a while for Murtaugh to trust Riggs. And of course, once Murtaugh's daughter is kidnapped, then he really needs Riggs. And great scene there in the desert. It's so cool. I remember, seeing that for the first time. And of course, when they get captured.
Well, let's go back because
Yeah.
I should have put the spoiler banner up, but the movie's very old. But no, so yeah, the daughter is kidnapped by who's the heavy in this movie? It's not Gary Busey.
It's Mitchell Ryan is playing General Peter McAllister.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Kevin McAllister, who was Macaulay Culkin's character in Home Alone. Oh, wouldn't that be an interesting cinematic tie-in?
And McAllister has a past with, with like Hunsaker, or he had. So okay, hold on. So Glover's Murtaugh has a past in the military as well with Amanda Hunsaker's father.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda Hunsaker's father, Michael, played by Tom Atkins.
The great Tom Atkins.
Yeah. Which he was in Halloween 3, right?
Halloween 3. He was in Night of the Creeps.
Yeah.
He's a big genre character actor. He's a hoot.
So he was. Speaking of hoots, he was in cahoots with this Peter McAllister character, the main bad guy, and it went south, and that's why her father, Amanda's father, reached out to Murtaugh and said, "You got to help me," and they have that whole scene in the bank there where he works. And he's like, "If you don't, you got to do what needs to be done. You got to. We always said we were going to look out for each other, and you got to kill him." And he's like, "Yeesh,"
I always wondered what happened after that scene, because Atkins flips out. He's like, "You got to kill him. You got to do that." And then
he went to lunch,
leaves. Yeah. But did someone, I don't know if he was the bank president or if there's anyone to say, what were you talking about over there?
Yeah, we're just talking about loans and stuff, We're
gonna make a killing.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it's there's a whole, obviously it's the 80s, so there's a whole thing with there's a drug shipment coming and this and that, and there's drugs involved. But it's really it becomes more, obviously, like I said, more about the kind of gradual relationship between these two cops, but also how they needed to really rely on each other as the script takes some dangerous turns there with Murtaugh's family in jeopardy.
Yeah, I mean, the whole plot of using those kind of old Vietnam connections to bring heroin into the country and start this underground drug network. That was another theme of like the mid 80s movies was Vietnam films, and that movies involved in conspiracies about, Vietnam. I
Right.
just watched for the first time since it came out, Jacob's Ladder, which came out in
Oh, wow.
1990. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about that coming up in probably a couple of weeks. I was
Great
way
movie.
too. It is a great movie, and I didn't like it for the longest time, but that's because my dad dragged me to see it when I was 13. I thought I was going to see a horror movie, but it was like this great psychological, emotional, spiritual thriller that I was not ready for. But that was also about, people doing experiments on soldiers in Vietnam and
Right.
covert operative groups. And it turns out the general was involved in one of those groups. And Riggs, who was in Vietnam, as we established as well, because he was part of a special unit, he knew this other special unit. It's like, yeah, those guys were all maniacs. If they're involved in this is not good.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, that's, Riggs learns that, like, Mr. Joshua. I love that scene where they go to that one prostitute's house, and they're Murtaugh and Riggs are interviewing those kids, the neighborhood kids.
Oh yeah, the one kid has the 3D glasses on. Yeah.
It's like, was he tall like me? What do he look like? And he's like, oh, let's get you some ice cream. And it was just, it's like Donner's really good at like capturing those moments of like, then next in a not a few seconds later, the whole house blows up. So it's like it goes from these lighthearted, kind of like endearing, interaction between these two adults and kids to like a house getting, blown up.
And there's also a bit of a button on that scene involving the kids because, it's played action movie wise. They're not like traumatized, and it's dealt. It's not exactly realistic in the sense that there'd probably be a lot of people freaking out. But
Right.
the kids, they go back to it, and one of them says, "Do it again."
Do it again. I like that scene earlier, like earlier on when Murtaugh visits the Amanda Hunsaker, death scene, the crime scene, basically. And there's that prostitute whose house later blows up. There's that prostitute who's there, and he he says that line, "Oh yeah, I know it is, all dressed up and no one to blow."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh, you're hilarious. You're hilarious." These things. Watching again is like I know these lines from renting it all the time when I was a kid. They're just so like in my psyche, and seeing it again is just. And I have to say the 4K is really good looking. It's very crisp, and seeing it on my big screen at home is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean it is a really nice transfer and some really great sound. I mean, my sound system is basically whatever came inside my TV, but it still sounds really good. And I do want to touch on some of the extra scenes because because I think Lethal Weapon 2, my recollection of it is that it moves differently. It moves more like an action movie.
Yeah.
This one, I forgot just how disjointed is the wrong word, but it kind of goes different places, and the plot reveals itself over the course of the 2 hours, rather than it being like a kind of typical detective, mystery, because it really is about these characters, what's going on in their individual lives, and then how they come together and deal with all that. So these extra scenes, they kind of inflate that element even more. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It just adds to the vignette kind of flow of it. There's a scene early on where Riggs is in his trailer and he's drinking heavily, and he throws a beer bottle at his television, and he basically breaks the TV and blows it up. That's an extra thing. And then later there's a scene where he buys a new TV and brings it back to his trailer, and it's like a present for his dog.
Isn't there a scene with like a sniper?
That was the next thing is, and that was the last big one. This one, it doesn't quite work because it literally gives Riggs plot armor. He gets this call that there's a sniper at, I think it's a school. It's either a school or it's right next to a school, because when he arrives, you're like, yeah, they've shot at a bunch of kids. One cop, I think, has been killed, and this guy's up in this building, and Riggs just like pops a smoke and he goes right out into the open. Everyone else is like cowering behind pillars and cars and stuff. He goes right out into the open and starts exchanging gunfire with the sniper. And the guy, of course, misses Riggs, and then when he reloads, Riggs takes him out, and he just kind of like goes along his merry way, as he does in a lot of these setups in the movie, because it's very almost like sketchy, not sketchy like Suspicious, but like these little sketches involving, like, we're establishing that this is how Riggs does his job. There's the Christmas tree lot cocaine deal. there's the jumper. There's this scene. I don't know if there's anything else that might have broken the rule of three, but it's establishing who he is before he finally runs into Murtaugh, kind of, or before they really get going. And then the whole plot of the heroin, and then the kidnapping, the torture, like in the desert and all that stuff. And then this bizarre, help me out with this, David, the showdown on Murtaugh's front lawn, where he's like holding everybody back as Riggs and Mr. Joshua go at it. My wife was watching this movie with me, and she's like, how are all those cops standing around and they're just okay with being ordered to, like, no, it's okay, let them kill each other?
So, that plays into Shane Black's like desire to make kind of like a modern, like an urban Western. And when you think about it, when it comes down to, like, let's say the sheriff having to deal with the bad guy, either in the middle of the street or at the bar, everybody gives them room and they got to duke it out. Let them figure it out. Hold on. Move back. And that's kind of like what this is.
And I get that. And it's a great parallel, but the key difference is, in those Westerns like High Noon or whatever, there is the sheriff and then there's the bad guy or the bandits. Like, the other people are townsfolk. They're not like other cops, right? Who are supposed to uphold the law.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it. I mean, they know this is on like Murtaugh's lawn, and they know how crazy and lethal Riggs is, and they know that this was a showdown that is kind of needed. Like, that this is the guy who could take this other guy out for sure.
I guess, and I'm going to take you at your word, but my point is, none of these cops who are showing up to support this know anything about this heroin plot.
No,
it's just the crazy new partner to Murtaugh fighting a blonde.
You got a helicopter with the light beaming down, and all of a sudden, I couldn't tell if it was like, was it raining during the scene, or it was just like a sprinkler?
It was the busted fire hydrant. Spewing
everywhere. There's water everywhere. There's like light and blue hues and everything is making the fight look really cool and everything. And of course, there's the classic 80s trope. And I don't mind it here at all. But just when Mr. Joshua Busey is down, Murtaugh is helping Riggs back up, and then the slow-mo leap back up from Busey, and they both turn and lean and shoot him together. That's classic 80s, man.
I want to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because 1 year later, we're going to get the scene that everybody references when they talk about this trope, Die Hard.
Yeah.
With the big blonde, another giant blonde thug who everyone thinks is dead, rising up, and then he gets shot before he can take out the heroes. In that case, it's the amazing Reginald VelJohnson. Is it because that scene is better done? Is it because it's Reginald VelJohnson and that kind of like the hero moment is part of the arc of his story in the film? Why do people always reference the ending of Die Hard and not, oh, that was the ending of Lethal Weapon? Because that came first, arguably.
Well, they're both good endings. I think Die Hard is a little bit more maybe memorable and I don't know if poignant's the word, but it's a little bit more memorable because it is that cop, who's played by, what'd you say,
Reginald Vell Johnson. Yeah, he
Yeah,
would be in
Die
Family
Hard.
Matters.
Yeah, and he was in Die Hard 2 as well. Yeah,
Did he make an appearance? I haven't seen
yeah,
I've
yeah,
seen that one, I think, the least. Although I love Die Hard too, but
right.
yeah.
But I think it's because he's the one who did the shooting, and this is a guy who was mainly like in his car most of the time or on the sidelines, and finally like he got to do something and save this buddy that he only really had communication through, walkie-talkie or phone or whatever. The funny thing about both of these movies is originally the script was handed to Bruce Willis for Lethal Weapon, and he felt it was too violent. So, and Die Hard was right around the corner.
I wonder, I don't know what the overlap was. Had perhaps Lethal Weapon come out and maybe he was like, oh, that made a shit ton of money. What's this Die Hard thing again?
Yeah, he probably called Joel Silver back up and says, so if you got anything else. Yeah.
Imagine a world where Bruce Willis did not play John McClane.
Sheesh.
Impossible.
Yeah. Crazy. Both movies take place in LA.
Both are Christmas films.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, I mean, I just like the physicality of like Mel Gibson in this role is just like insane. I remember like, when he's being tortured by the great Al Jeong, who's been in so many movies,
including he popped up in Die Hard too. He was one of Rickman's henchmen.
Yeah, he was, and he was in Big Trouble in Little China. But yeah, he like the way he, got out of like being chained and electrocuted and all that stuff. It took out these guys. I loved seeing like Murtaugh's daughter like watching him take out all these guys. It's like it's scary and also impressive and kind of a turn on. Yeah, so and even like later on, I think he's like running through LA with that big gun. I think he's no, he's not barefoot, but he's wearing shoes. But it's just like it's nuts. He's like just going after the car and just running full speed, and he's just like a maniac. I remember watching that and I was thinking, of course, I was reading comics at the time, and I'm like, okay, there's your Wolverine. This guy's nuts.
Yeah, man, I could totally see that now. One thing about Al Long is the actor we were talking about a second ago. I've seen Big Trouble in Little China, I think once.
Ooh, wow!
I know. I never quite got that memo, and I watched it when I was much later on as an adult. And I'd seen I don't even know if he has any lines in Die Hard. I feel like he's just like he's like the sixth henchman from the back.
Right.
So watching Lethal Weapon this time for this discussion, I feel like this is the first time I've ever seen him talk or heard him talk.
And even here, he didn't have that many lines, but yeah.
Right. But it was funny because he was kind of like the reluctant torturer. Like he came in, he did his thing, and then the general, or maybe it was Mr. Joshua, was like, hit him again. And he's like, this guy, he doesn't know anything. Like he would have talked by now. But his voice, I was not ready for that voice to come out of that body. He was like, look, man, he's not going to tell you anything. I'm like, what the hell?
I wonder if that was dubbed or something, but who knows?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I expect him to be more gruff or something. But
right.
yeah, I mean, if folks have not seen Lethal Weapon, I know we've just kind of spoiled the hell out of it, but it is definitely worth watching, if for nothing than a historical artifact, but it's also a really thrilling movie. And also, I think for folks of a younger generation who only know Mel Gibson from the controversy, and you're like, how did this guy ever become a star? This is one of the examples of why he... Let me sidebar. Has he ever given a bad performance?
Gibson?
Yeah. And not like material wise, but like I feel like he always brings it, and he
Yeah, I
tends
mean,
to be in good movies.
I think some like rom-coms or romantic dramas have
I
been a
never
little.
bothered with Bird on a Wire, so I'm talking about real movies.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So there's been some Bird on the Wires. Um, yeah. I don't know. I mean, most of the time, like he's solid. Um, heck, even in later on, even in The Beaver. Yeah, Jodie
Which I
Foster,
never saw. That was the Jodie Foster movie.
where he
I
has
never
the
saw that.
puppet. Yeah, it's pretty good. Um, this it's funny. Like this movie came out, like I said, in March of '87, and the other big movie around that time was Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, and Platoon. Yeah. So they were released right around the same time. Also, pretty big around that time was Whoopi Goldberg in Burglar, and 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 Bruce Willis and Kim Basinger in Blind Date,
My goodness.
Blake Edwards movie. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember because I think Platoon was 86, right? And then, but it was probably still playing in
It was
87 in
87,
March.
came out in February of 87.
It did. Okay. I
And
always thought that was in 86.
yeah, and it was still doing well. And like, so in February, the two big movies in 87, February 87 were Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and Platoon. So up until then, the box office at the top of the box office were those two movies. And then Lethal Weapon came and kind of, surprised everybody. Yeah. So they must have like immediately greenlit, a sequel.
Which wouldn't come out for like another 2 years. But I mean, that was more the pace of sequels at
Yeah.
that point. Yeah.
I mean, they just totally turned it around like that. And I remember when Lethal Weapon 2 came out, like 89 was huge movie, huge summer of movies like Lethal Weapon 2, Batman, Last Crusade, Star Trek 5, but Abyss. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 1987 was
Yes.
a huge movie year. And as I promised, I remember that. I don't know if it was in the same issue, but Mad Magazine ran parodies of Lethal Weapon and I think Three Men and a Baby as well.
Oh,
I remember
hilarious.
the Lethal Weapon parody was called Legal Reckon, by the usual gang of idiots as they were known. But okay, so here is why. This is my thesis, and I have it in a notebook.
Oh boy.
Why Lethal Weapon is the apex of 87 action.
Okay.
Follow me here. All right. I don't know if this was in this deleted scene, so you have to trust me on this, or just go back and watch it on the 4K. But in the scene where Riggs is watching television, I think it's the same one where he breaks his TV. He's watching Family Feud, hosted by Richard Dawson.
The Kissing Bandit.
Yes. Who was the villain in another 1987 film, The Running Man, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. The Running Man starred Schwarzenegger, who was also the star of 1987's blockbuster sci-fi horror film Predator, which co-starred Shane Black, who wrote this movie, Lethal Weapon, that we're discussing.
There you go. Crazy.
Mary Ellen Trainor, who we mentioned, was the psychologist. She played the mom in the Monster Squad. On the marquee in one of the scenes in downtown LA in Lethal Weapon, you can see the Lost Boys.
Yeah.
I think it said I think it said the Lost Boys, the great hit movie, or some awkward phrase underneath it. I don't know. And then there was a character actor named Ed O'Ross, who I believe was the guy that Joshua and the general were intimidating in that club with the whole burning
48
thing.
Hours.
Oh, was he? Okay. Well, in 87, he was also in The Hidden and Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, yes. Two great movies.
Yeah. So there's like 5 or 6 degrees right there.
Yeah. So I guess we can't really end this without sharing our thoughts on the speculative 4th sequel, Lethal Weapon 5. It just shouldn't happen.
Is there new? Is there? I feel like they've been talking about it forever, but is there something new? Are they really considering it now?
Gibson has said that
He
it's
wants to eat, so he'll do it. Yes. No.
yeah. Well, after his Passion of the Christ 2, um, you know, I guess there's a script. I don't know, but like, I mean, we've seen what these two look like now. I mean, what are we gonna do here?
It's
It's like,
it's gonna be a legacy sequel, a requel, like
yeah,
I Know What You Did Last Summer,
oh gosh,
um, where they're. I mean, but here's the thing: they're both like in their 70s at this
yeah,
point,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So they're beyond retirement age. I mean, you're
yeah.
talking
So
about it'd be like instead of Lethal Weapon 5, it'd be Grumpy Old Men 3. Um,
yep, yeah. He's Glover's 78 and Gibson's 69.
wow.
Stop.
I would
Um,
rather see a sequel to Fat Man with Mel Gibson than Lethal Weapon 5.
it's true. It's true. Um, and look, I'm not saying that we can't have action movies with elderly folk. I mean, we had Dial of Destiny.
You're not making a good case, David.
I know we had let's see, we had Last Blood with
You're not making a good case.
Halloween. Oh no, never mind. Okay. So
Freakier Friday. No, that hasn't come out yet, but yeah. No, it would be a legacy sequel at this point, and I know I'm going to eat my words because if this happens, then we're going to have to watch it and talk about it. A remake.
well, they had the TV series that was like what 2 or 3 seasons.
Wait, really?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I feel like I knew that there was a TV series at some point, but I didn't realize it made it past 3 episodes, let alone 3 seasons.
Yeah, so it was like with Damon Wayans and Clayne Crawford as Riggs, and Damon Wayans as Roger Murtaugh. Yeah,
But they're like young. I mean, Damon Wayans. It was Damon Wayans or Damon Wayans Jr. Which
so
one?
this was in like 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, so they weren't young.
And I haven't seen it, so I can't judge. But I can't see. I could see doing it as a comedy action series, but not trying to capture Lethal Weapon because Roger Murtaugh is the straight man. I mean,
Yeah,
he's kind of got his quirks and everything, but he's not Damon Wayans, right? Um, oh, we forgot to mention playing Mrs. Murtaugh is
Darlene Love,
Darlene Love,
who
who.
was previously in Richard Donner's Scrooged.
Oh,
Oh
that's
no,
right.
She would. That was
That was
later,
the
right?
next year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that next year. Yeah.
but no, I know her because she sang one of my all-time favorite Christmas songs
Always
from
in
Home
David Letterman.
Alone. Hmm?
On David Letterman, she would always sing that song.
Alone on Christmas?
Oh no, that was a different Christmas song.
Okay, no. Alone on Christmas, which was the theme song for Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
Oh my gosh.
Which is, yeah, it's so good. One of those upbeat Christmas movies. It's also kind of sad, but then inspiring. Yeah.
So she would sing Christmas Baby Please Come Home every holiday season on David Letterman show. Because it was I think back then she was I think she was singing it with a girl group called the Blossoms, and that was produced like it was a Phil Spector produced record that got yeah, no, Phil Spector.
There's a TV show I would watch.
Yeah, starring Al Pacino. Oh,
why not? But no, when you say the Blossoms, I immediately think of Darlene Love, backed by girls who are all dressed up as Mayim Bialik.
Yeah,
from that
totally.
sitcom. Yeah,
That's how it was.
Yeah, and then you've got the rehab version of that band, the Gin Blossoms, who would become big a few years later.
Yeah, hence the gin.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So Lethal Weapon. There's no end credit scenes, no nothing. It's just solid, good, buddy cop action. It's just like, kind of pioneered it all. After that, we had like movies with like, I think it was like Sam Elliott did like some buddy cop movie with, I think there was
Did he
like
do with Whoopi Goldberg?
with Peter Weller. It was called Shakedown, and he was in Burglar with Whoopi Goldberg.
Okay, that's
But
right.
yeah, Shakedown was with I think Peter Weller and Sam Elliott, and then like Number One with a Bullet was another buddy cop movie with like Billy D. Williams and I think one of the Carradines maybe. Yeah, and it's just like, you know, it became like, you know, nonstop. Yeah, but this was, you know, obviously one of the better ones from the 80s.
Yeah, I think it also probably had the benefit of getting out, you know, being one of the early ones, and
Yeah,
also one of the great ones that others would kind of try and knock off, because you can't
right.
obviously do Lethal Weapon again. You got to put some kind of a spin on it. But yeah, it really is worth watching, and you do understand why it became a phenomenon that spawned a good sequel and perhaps some not so great ones that I haven't seen, so I can't
Right.
testify. But
You
do you think?
had Eric Clapton on guitar on the soundtrack in this one, and I think in the second one, definitely on the third one, because he and Sting did this song. It's Probably Me from Lethal Weapon 3. In Lethal Weapon 2, the closing credit song was Cheer Down by George Harrison. But in this movie, it was basically Michael Kamen, the late Michael Kamen, who did a lot of like, he did like Highlander,
Oh,
the score from Highlander, and he did this score. I will say, in the Lethal Weapon franchise, there's a little bit too much reliance on the whole saxophone thing. Na, na, na. It's like,
it is it was jarring because it's very cheesy, and it's something that would kind of be parodied when you look back at like 80s action movies with
yeah,
the sax. So it's kind of hard
like
to take seriously.
like I'm wanting the camera to like turn on a rooftop and see the saxophone player from Lost Boys or something.
That would be another great direct connection to the
Yep,
awesomeness of 87. But
exactly.
well, David, thank you for hanging out and reminiscing on
Hmm.
about Lethal Weapon with me. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, had a good time.
And you know, we've been talking about it, but yes, once again, this is not a plug, but it's not a plug. This is the Lethal Weapon 4K.
There you go.
Was this the poster that your friend had up in her room, the
Uh,
giant Mel Gibson face?
Pretty much, and at the bottom it said available now on video cassette.
Now, did she, because she was a Mel Gibson stan, did she like put like something over Danny Glover's face,
No, no,
like a full shirtless Mel Gibson from another
no,
poster or something? No.
no.
Okay. All right. She was a fan of the film and the Mel.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. Well, David, finally, of Keeping It Real, I didn't put up our names here because I'm that professional. So I'll type something in down at the bottom for the video release. So you're with Keeping It Real. You are keeping it real. And yeah, yeah, well, yes, and you do a great job.
Thank you.
All your information will be down below. So folks, be sure and support David and all his movie watching and reviewing endeavors. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and all that business. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much. Take care. And we are not too old for this shit. I just want to put that out there. We're in it for the long haul.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Hey everyone, Ian here. I know, long time no see. But if you like the video you just watched, feel free to subscribe to Kicking the Seat right here, and also check out the playlist and recommended video right here. Thanks for watching.